W. Edwards Deming said, "Fear invites wrong figures, and bearers of bad news fare badly." In 1950, a statistician from Wyoming delivered a series of lectures to Japanese executives that would permanently alter global manufacturing. His name was W. Edwards Deming, and his message was as simple as it was radical. Stop blaming workers for problems created by systems. Japanese industry listened. Within decades, Japan moved from producing inexpensive imitations to dominating global markets in automobiles, electronics, and precision manufacturing. The country's most prestigious quality award still bears Deming's name. American industry, which had ignored him for years, was forced to take notice only after it could no longer compete. Shame on us, huh? Deming is often remembered as a quality guru or a statistician. But if you read his work closely, you discover something striking. He spent far more time talking about people than numbers, about fear, about what fear does to information, and about why organizations that manage through blame will always make worse decisions than organizations that manage through trust. In Section 2, we examined why the 5 whys fail at a cognitive and structural level. In Section 3, we begin building the alternative. And we start with Deming because he understood, long before modern safety science, the direct connection between blame, fear, and organizational dysfunction. Deming distilled his philosophy into 14 points for the transformation of management. Point 8 contains just 3 words: drive out fear. Those 3 words encode an entire theory of organizational failure. No one can put his best performance in unless he feels secure. Fear takes on many faces. A common denominator of fear in any form, anywhere, is loss from impaired performance and padded figures. Fear produces 2 outcomes simultaneously. Performance degrades, and information becomes distorted, not because people are dishonest, but because honesty becomes dangerous. Deming sharpened this insight later. Fear invites wrong figures. Bearers of bad news fare badly. To keep his job, anyone may present to his boss only good news. If your investigation method creates fear, the data it produces is corrupted by design. You're not collecting facts, you're collecting survival strategies. Deming illustrated this with a case study from a shoe manufacturer. A quality inspector consistently reported defect rates just under 10%. Investigation revealed why. A rumor had spread that the factory would be shut down if defects ever reached 10%. Whether the threat was real didn't matter, the belief was real. The data became fiction to protect livelihoods. Fear doesn't merely affect morale, it destroys the integrity of information. Deming demonstrated this dynamic with his famous red bead experiment. Workers are tasked with producing white beads from a container containing mostly white beads and some red ones. Red beads are defects. Workers follow procedures perfectly. Variation still occurs because the variation is produced by the system. Deming then plays the role of management, praising some workers, criticizing others, setting targets, threatening consequences, even firing the worst performers. Nothing changes. 100% of the variation comes from the system. Simple lesson: when performance varies due to common cause variation, blaming individuals isn't just unfair, it's irrational. Deming estimated that roughly 94% of organizational problems originate in the system, not the people working within it. When an investigation lands on a person, it has almost certainly found the minority while ignoring the majority. The 5 whys by design is a red bead generator. It identifies the worker holding the paddle and blames them for the contents of the bin. Building on Walter Schuhart's work, Deming distinguished between common cause and special cause variation. Common cause variation is inherent in the system. It's predictable in range and uncontrollable by individuals. Special cause variation comes from something abnormal or external. The management response must differ depending on what type of variation is present. Blaming people for common cause variation adds fear and increases instability. Yet the 5 whys treats nearly all outcomes as special causes attributable to individual action. It has no mechanism for recognizing that a result may be the predictable product of normal system operation. Deming saw fear as part of a broader system that he called the forces of destruction. Rankings, merit ratings, targets without methods, performance appraisals, and incentive systems that replace intrinsic motivation with self-defense. He identified performance appraisal as one of management's deadliest practices. It assigns differences in outcomes to people when those differences are actually produced by the system. Peter Schultz summarized the results succinctly. We don't ask why, we ask who. Performance appraisal becomes a who-based approach to problem solving. We become owls. The 5 whys operates in exactly the same way. It claims to ask why, but it reliably answers who. In his final years, Deming synthesized his work into the system of profound knowledge, appreciation for a system, knowledge of variation, theory of knowledge, psychology. Each element exposes a failure mode of blame-based investigation. Linear chains cannot capture system interactions. Individual blame misreads variation. Untested narratives masquerade as knowledge. Fear destroys intrinsic motivation and corrupts information. Deming never wrote about the 5 whys directly, but his teachings make his assessment unmistakable. The 5 whys violate systems thinking, misclassifies variation, constructs untested causal stories, and creates fear. It degrades the very information required to improve performance. It's not a learning tool. It's a distortion engine. Deming's alternative begins with different assumptions. Systems produce outcomes. People operate within constraints. Improvement comes from changing conditions, not judging individuals. And this is not softness, it is rigor. It's easier to call out scapegoats than it is to really solve problems. Fear invites wrong figures. Wrong figures lead to wrong decisions. Wrong decisions make systems worse. Investigation only becomes useful when fear is removed. So every investigation method either drives out fear or drives it in. The 5 whys drive it in. Deming showed us why that single fact determines everything that follows.